Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Fraser Crane stumbling drunk and trying to climb out of the gutter. Okay, here we have Birdman. I'm really excited to talk about this film. I'm going to tell you straight up right now, I love it. There will be spoilers later on, but I'll let you know before I get there. It's a comedy drama. It was written, directed by Alejandro G. Inarritu. I'm going to mispronounce some names. I tried to figure them out, but I'm still getting them wrong. We had two other writers, Nicholas... Oh, man. I can't even read my own writing on this one. Gio Cabone and Alexander Danelaris. I did my best. And acting, we have Michael Keaton, Edward Norton, Naomi Watts, Emma Stone, Andrea Riseborough, Zach Galifianakis. We got a killer cast here. It was released in 2014. It's got a runtime of 2 hours. Birdman. Let's get into it. It's fun, existential, artistic, challenging, strong, and meta. Giving you a summary. Let's give you a summary here as much as I can before getting into the spoilers. Let me try to sell you on this in case you stop watching to actually watch the movie and then maybe check the rest of the video out later. Basically, we are dealing with an actor who is in a stage of midlife crisis, who wants to reinvent himself, be taken seriously as an artist when, he used to just do all these superhero movies, and he was famous for one called Birdman. Very, very directly a comparison to Batman, which also, if you know anything about Michael Keaton, that's why I said this is very meta. Basically that is like the main thing. This actor is actor played by Michael Keaton, choosing to revive his career and really wants to legitimately do something with depth and substance and become an artist or be seen as an artist and go back to, his roots and do a play, do some drama in the theater. And the movie is just about his struggles with that and being taken seriously. I've got some quotes here from Alejandro, the director, as well. He talked about it being an exploration of ego, and I would say the movie is also about authenticity, because we are talking about art in some of its highest forms, and people, gatekeepers, artists, and others that are also judging and putting their 2 cents or 20 cents in, and what that does to somebody, and also this actor's struggle to be authentic and be himself. Maybe not. It's not even really a struggle. I think he's very naturally authentic, but no one else sees that. And what do you do with that? And you have to defend yourself, and it's difficult. There are moments in the film where they speak of how our protagonist here confuses love with admiration, and that is a central theme to the film as well, especially going hand in hand with being an actor. There's some familial components in here as well, and just like an actor would, it's very true to life, I feel like, in a lot of ways, where even though there's some slightly fantastical elements, which I won't get into right now, there are these very real scenarios of, like, not being there for your kids as an actor. Some actors are able to do that, but most of them, I feel like there's decisions you have to make with your career, and a lot of them have regrets about that, or maybe doing things in a different way. But I think for a long time, there was a trend of actors that just, they weren't where they wanted to be sometimes when it came to family, and they were working. So there's a little bit of that in there too. It's really interesting because some really awesome things about this film, like, to me, the biggest thing is plot and story, and it is so just immaculately acted. It is so amazingly directed. and written, but also with that direction, there is the concept, which again, this meta thing that's happening, where they try to make it appear as one single shot. So they have very long scenes that you would normally not get at all, let alone in like a Hollywood motion picture, a very what am I looking for? Like a big budget studio film like that, would be something that is a little more arty. And what is the purpose in doing it, right? But there is intention and purpose, which is what makes it great. So the director Alejandro, he wanted to make these 3 days that are in this movie feel like it was one shot, to mirror two things. One of them being what it is like to be on the stage acting, where there's just continuous, right? Like, yes, you kind of have scene changes, but you're getting ready for the next thing. You jump back there, you get changed, you throw on a wig or whatever you have to do in a lot of these cases, and you're not just like, okay, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll shoot more. Like it's and that is also the mirror of life, where you don't get these breaks. It's a continuous take, other than sleeping, right? Like, you don't have escape and you don't have rest. And that's one of those things that he very purposely wanted to have the viewer feel, was that this is life. This is what it is like. It's not broken up by a bunch of cuts here and there. It's like, even though it's over the course of 3 days, it's really interesting how they shoot overnight what that looks like. Because it's like a time-lapse type thing. It's not necessarily like, cut, now it's the next day. So it's very purposeful, and it makes it really interesting. Also, just the camera and the angles they're using, and how the camera follows characters. And we've just got this first-person perspective sometimes that is really interesting, and the way that the film moves and how it's paced. It's just incredibly well done, and not something that I think you see very often. And there was another quote Alejandro had, was projecting reality with fiction, which I think is the goal of most art in general. But again, very meta that he brings that up, because I mean, this is art about art, which is what I love about it, because I love art about art. Screenplay, he mentioned that too, because I had watched the extras, and he was talking about how, like, it was just a very living animal. Like, it was just like, it was constantly changing. They were doing what served the movie best, and again, which is what, for me, abstract painting, like, every stroke informs the next one, and it's just continually moving until you get there. You continue to make changes until you arrive and you've resolved all the issues, and you have something at the end that's beautiful and wonderful, but it is constantly in flux. Another really interesting thing, the score is just drums. I don't think I noticed that upon the first couple watches. I didn't notice it until they explicitly said it, and I was like, oh, yeah. The score is just drums. It's just drums. It's just percussion, which is really interesting. And he talked about wanting to create an internal rhythm of the film. That, again, the pacing is so controlled in so many aspects. And creating an original score of drum for that is really an interesting way to manipulate that sense of time for the viewer. I'm going to see if there's anything else I can say about plot and stuff before we get into some other things here. So, there is this key thing. So there's this quote: "A thing is a thing, not what is said of that thing," and it is in the movie, and it means a hell of a lot. And I think one of those things is that this is an exploration of ego. This is discussing how people can be confusing love with admiration and giving oneself purpose. What is that? Because for some artists of different kinds, fame is one of the motivators for them. And there's that admiration versus love versus, creating maybe things that are inauthentic, but also what people say about you does not change who you are, right? A thing is a thing, not what is said of that thing. And so that's a really good one to keep in mind too. I don't think there's anything else that I can really say about this in summary right now. But it is just so incredibly well done. Just everything about it. Again, incredibly directed, amazingly acted. The musical score, the pacing of it, amazing concept. It is very entertaining while asking important questions, and yeah, that's. I'll get back to that in a second. While watching it, for me, I was high on art. That's like, if that's an emotion, I guess. I was high on art. I was aroused. And for me, art is very arousing to the senses, making me engaged. That's what I mean by arousal. Tense. I was excited and very analytical as well, because there were questions that came up so constantly that I was like, wait, why did they make this choice? Why did he do that? Why are they doing this? But in a good way. It didn't take me out of the film at all. I was able to stay fixated and in the moment while still having those questions come through. And to me, that's some of the best art. So if you are into depth, if you love art of any kind, whether it be music, movies, visual art, poetry, whatever, if you like psychology, if you like philosophy, I think that you would really, really enjoy this film. Now, let's say you don't consider yourself a person that likes any of those things. It is still an incredibly entertaining movie about just an actor's life. Again, it's comedy, it's drama, they tackle some serious subjects in a very lighthearted way, but in a very realistic way that I like, which is, the dirty, authentic realism of how people act and speak and treat one another. And it's not an after-school special. It has a lot of stuff going on here that is great fodder for reflection, conversation, and just incredibly entertaining at the same time. So I don't think you need to be super, super arty or very, very into psychology more than another person or whatever. I know I threw the word philosophy in there, but I don't know how to explain that right now. To me, psychology and philosophy just go so hand in hand, and especially if we talk about existentialism and what we're living for, that's definitely a philosophical argument to me. But basically, it's entertainment at kind of an upper crust level, but still incredibly authentic and real, that I think almost anyone could connect to, because we are talking about the human experience. And yes, this guy, being a millionaire actor, whatever, who had this crazy hit superhero series, but he is in a rut. He's in a midlife crisis. He's seeking redemption. He's seeking to make himself someone worthy of respect of himself, right? Importance and function, I would say, again, function-wise, it's incredibly entertaining, and it asks those hard questions in a very natural, authentic way. It's not preachy, it's organic, and it is real and fits in without distracting. And I would say, yeah, I would say it's more important if you were an artist than if you were just other kind of folks. Because as an artist, I think there's different questions you might ask yourself. There's some that are applicable to everybody, but there's also this other aspect of authenticity as an artist that I think would hit home for a lot of people. I think it's an important movie because it is really original. I find it to be so refreshing and, like, again, arousing. Just like the pacing and everything. I've never seen a movie like it, and it is very contemporary. Very, it's almost like it's got a slightly indie feel, but the rawness isn't in the low budget. The rawness is in the reality, and we're working with a bigger budget. And when I say that it's glossy, I don't mean that. Usually, when I say glossy, it's a negative thing because it doesn't have a lot of depth. But what I mean here is that it is put together incredibly well. They have the resources, the time, the minds, and the willpower to pull something off that is so perfect. But part of what made it so perfect was the fact that they were willing to make changes constantly. Top shelf. For those reasons, it's top shelf. A great expression of the human condition. It's entertaining, it's funny, it's tense, tackles serious issues, the writing, directing, music, whatever. It's an incredibly original film. For me, it is on my top shelf. It's fantastic. I implore you to see this film. I'm going to get into spoilers now. Time for spoilers. Spoilers. I'm really only going to get into the ending right now, which is of some debate. Because from what I could tell, the writers didn't express this is what the ending means. One of the writers, in fact, expressed, I don't really know. They're like, I mean, there's multiple writers and there's things were changing all the time. And the ending apparently had changed. It was. I mean, again, things were changing constantly. It was apparently meant to be something else, and then it had changed, and it allowed for a better ending, but we don't know what the original ending was, and we don't even know what this ending means. And if you haven't seen this movie yet, you don't know what the heck I'm talking about yet. But basically, again, if you're one of those people who wants to spoil it for themselves, fine. And if you've already seen it, then fantastic. I'm glad you're still watching this. So, with Michael Keaton's character, Riggin, in a performance wherein he is being watched by a brutal critic who can make or break his Broadway play, he ends up shooting himself with a real bullet. And after that, the film ends with a scene where he's in the hospital as he's shot his nose off and he's been recovering. And he's in a room full of flowers, and he's visited by his agent, Zach Galifianakis' character, and I think his wife was there at the beginning, and she's kind of a voice of reason, but Zach Galifianakis is saying, everyone loves you, like, they're martyring you, they've got candlelit vigils, and then read the review, read the review that she wrote, that critic that I forget the name of, and she just says that she's the one who uses this term unexpected virtue of ignorance. I don't remember exactly how she said it. I should have written that whole quote down, but he busts in the door and is just elated to tell him this news that it's everything he wanted. He has the adoration, he has the respect, he got an amazing review and saying that he contributed something to the theater that is completely original and hyper-realism and that he's changed things and he's made a difference. And look, he is a person. He is alive. He can recognize himself as being worthy of life, and because other people recognize him for doing something great, which goes to that theme of adoration and love, right? And if there's no love, there's no existence for him, which he says at one point with lines in the play that he's like, it's like I'm not even here, right? So after that, his daughter Sam comes in, but Riggin's not there because he has climbed out the window and flown away. And Sam's looking everywhere for him after battling the mob of fans and press to get in. And the window is open and she looks and she starts smiling as she looks to the sky. So there's a couple different things here. One, Sam is a recovering drug addict. And let's just say, let's play devil's advocate here. That, not devil's advocate, that's not what I meant to say. This is why I hate cliches. It's not what I meant. Let's say that Riggins dead. Let's say that he actually died. This scene doesn't really exist. Let's say he's in the hospital and he's dead. Or that he's not in the hospital. Let's just say he's dead, period. Sam maybe is dealing with that death with the use of drugs, and perhaps she's hallucinating. Perhaps she's delusional. That's a possibility. We don't see him flying around in the sky, right? All these other times that we see Birdman or whatever else, like, we know this is a figment of Riggins' imagination, this haunting of himself, of his character that he played, and that every other time he's flying around or throwing things in his dressing room or whatever, these magical telekinetic abilities, that it is in his mind. So whose mind are we in now? Are we taking the perspective of Sam as she walks in the room? So another theory is that he's in a coma, and this is all, again, figment of his imagination. Basically, a lot of theories would be that he is dead, and that this scene isn't real. It could be the last second of his mind, leftover consciousness, almost like in a dream state, as his physical body shuts down from a bullet entering his brain. It could be that last expression as his consciousness is expelled from his body. This fantasy that he did it. He did what he wanted to do. Everything's amazing and beautiful and wonderful and magical and right in the world. He gets everything he wanted, right? Which just doesn't seem to make sense. And another thing is that the bandage that he wears on his face looks like the Birdman mask in a way. Also interesting that he shot off his nose, that beak, for Birdman. And maybe he really did escape Birdman with becoming an artist, right? With really doing it. He really did it. But also he had physically done it by being able to shoot that off, and just, it reminds me of Fight Club in a way, where there's a very strong, physical, violent, painful moment that can shock the reality back into the system when one could be delusional. I don't know. I don't know what happens there. But I don't think it's meant to be literal. And even though I don't understand or have come to a solid conclusion, I feel like it doesn't matter. I can process and enjoy the film for what it is without even knowing what it is. That ending is just, it's just so metaphorical. It just could be so many things. And it could just be the freedom. But the weird thing, I get caught up in it, because if he killed Birdman and he's just left with Riggin, why is he able to fly? Why is he able to do that? Or maybe he doesn't, right? We have no idea if he's even there anymore. I want to talk about the title really quickly, Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And I think that one of the ways to interpret that, the virtue of ignorance, being that you can create something so pure sometimes, and maybe what he was doing with theater and trying to write and direct and act and whatever this production, that he did it, that he pulled it off almost by accident, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing, because he purely was trying to do it for the love of doing it without the experience, and sometimes that leads to something beautiful and wonderful. by by having the resources to do something that you don't think you're ready for, and you do it anyway, which could be that unexpected virtue of ignorance. I hope that you see this film. If you haven't, I hope that if you have seen it, that you enjoy it. It's a gooder. It's just fantastic. I love it. Birdman.